Yo! What's good, lads and ladies? This is a video based on using Absolab or Arcane Umbra for a main. What I think about it, some key points, stuff like that. Before we start, I just want to say that this could be quite a divisive topic. So if you have some opinions, leave them down in the comments below, and we can discuss. And also subscribe, lol. Usually I don't really script videos, I just kind of do it, but for this one I've wrote like a bunch of key points, and it's basically a 4-page Word document, so if I sound a bit different, or it sounds forced, it's because I basically have a script. There's just a lot of key points that I've written. But I digress. I'm going to go through a few key steps when comparing the two sets. As you can see on the screen, the comparison points are going to be acquisition, star forcing, flaming, and then some miscellaneous points as well. These criteria can affect players differently at many points of progression. We're going to go through them as we go along the video. This might be a little bit of a longer video than I usually make, so bear with me, but I'm going to try my best. Segment 1 is going to be acquisition. Ooh. So essentially how you get them. We'll start off with Absolab. Some people might not think that the acquisition of gear matters. But especially when you're pushing to like 22, the ease of access is a large factor. With Absolab, there's 2 ways of getting the gear, which is from shops and boss drops. In terms of shops, there's 2 shops you can buy them from. The first one, as you can see now on the screen, is a scrapyard in Edelstein. And the second one is the Dark World Tree at the base of the World Tree on Victoria Island. In regard to the scrapyard version, you can purchase the shoe, glove, and cape here. For 2 coins. To get 1 coin, as you can see, you need 20 of the diffusion cores and 1 of the extraordinary cores to make a coin. You trade that with the vendor to get a coin, and then you buy the items. To get the diffusion cores, so the 20, you need to do the weekly quests in Scrapyard. You can do this on a character per week. So if you have multiple characters that are at the scrapyard level, you can do multiple weeklies and get multiple diffusion cores. It's 20 per character. And when I was making my Absolab gear, I used to do it on 6 characters. But I ended up not even needing the fodder because I just got quite decently lucky on my Star Force. The extraordinary cores, they drop from normal and hard Lotus, which is the boss on the screen. And it's, again, 2 cores for an armor, or 2 coins for an armor, or 5 coins for a weapon. I would usually recommend just waiting to get a box drop for a weapon, because it's 5 coins, but say you get the rest of the whole set and you have coins extra, just buy a weapon, like, who cares, unless you get carries weekly. In regard to the other shop, it's the same sort of deal, apart from it's now a sort of demon theme. You need to do the Dark World Tree weeklies, which, let me tell you, are a lot easier than the Heaven weeklies, bro. I don't know why they don't update the Haven ones, but the Dark World Tree ones are literally just kill quests. It's so much faster. You can get the shoulder from this shop. You can also get the hat, but, like, just ignore the hat. With the overall as well, you can get, but overall's completely useless. Same deal, 20 cores from the weekly quests and 1 core from the boss to get a coin. 2 coins for an armor piece, 5 coins for a weapon. Again, it's the same sort of thing, but just slightly different. You can also get boxes, which drop armor boxes and weapon boxes. You can pick any Absolab item from these boxes, but they only drop from the hard modes of Lotus and Damien. So the only way you're going to get these if you're a newer player is if you get carried, or if you join a struggle party, or if your guild or something offers like facilities to help you get these. For most people that are sort of mid to late game, you're going to be trading hard Lomian to get boxes or mules to gear up your characters. I'd recommend doing that before the end of Savior to sort of prepare for that 5% boss change that's upcoming in the patch after Savior. But that's a completely different point. In terms of AU, in comparison, Arcane Umbra, there are a few options to get these. In the same fashion as the Absolab archetype, we have 2 coin shops for various equipments. The shoe, glove, and cape come from the Lucid shop, so the Lachlan shop. To get these, the coins are slightly different. You need 9 droplets, so the Arcane River droplets, you need 9 of them. And the Lucid stones is 1, and that makes a coin. So it's a 9-1 split for a coin. These droplets, you can buy them from a shop for 50 mil, like the general shops in Lachlan, Arcana, and so on and so on. Or they drop from monsters in the Lachlan to Arcana area. You can also get them from like event shops for coins, things like that. There's lots of ways to get these, but that's because you need a lot of them for a coin. 12 coins gets you an armor piece. 24 coins gets you a weapon. So say you buy an armor piece for 12 coins. That's 108 droplets and 12 lucid coins. So you need 12 normal or hard lucid kills and 108 droplets. If you were going to buy just one equipment piece, so buy all 108 droplets, that's 5 billion meso per item. Which is quite a lot for a new player. Like, for me, when I was in this area, I couldn't even dream of having that much. That was like 2-3 weeks of meso just on one piece to then boom it. Like, no thanks, bro. But, you know, it's... In return for that, the Arcane Umbra's base stats and the stats gained from Star Forcing are superior to Abso, but we'll get into that. Asphera, same deal, same 9-1 coin split, but you now have a separate stone to make the coins. These are stone origin droplets, and they drop from Asphera to Lamina, and you have the cobweb stone, which drops from normal and hard will. You can get the shoulder from this shop and a weapon. Again, you can get the hat here, but just, like, don't care about the hat, you just use Kra. Excuse me. You can also trade the different types of droplets for each other. So the river droplet and the stone droplet you can change at the vendors. So say you have more of one than another, you can just swap it through. And then you also have the boxes as well. These boxes drop from a lot more bosses now, but that's just because they're so much rarer and harder to get. The weapon box and the armor box, again, you can pick any kind from these boxes, and they come from hard lucid, hard will, chaos gloom, hard darknell, normal and hard Veracilla, and hard and extreme Black Mage. So there's a lot more options to get these boxes again, but I genuinely think the drop rate of these is like astronomically lower compared to Absolab. But that's just from my personal experience. You could get lucky and get everything in like one set of kills. But again, same sort of thing. If you're not able to trade these bosses or you're not able to get in struggle parties, the speed at which you get fodders will be much more reduced compared to that of Absolab, just because of how much harder it is to contribute to these parties. And now we are going to go to segment 2, which is going to be Star Forcing. Now, to sort of understand this, we're going to break down Star Forcing a little bit, just so you have a baseline idea of how Star Forcing works. To explain briefly what we need to touch on, here's a crazy math example that won't make a lot of sense, that top left box at face value. But the layman's terms of explaining this is that the cost of each attempt at a Star Force upgrade is based on the level of the equipment itself. As a star level rises, so too does the cost. If you safeguard an item on top of this, so you prevent it from booming, because items can boom after Savior from 15 star onwards, the price essentially almost doubles. The stat gain per star are scaled in accordance with the item level as well. So as the base gain of an Arcane Umbra item is just more compared to an Absolab, because an Absolab item is level 160, whereas an Arcane Umbra is level 200. So that little chart on the right, you can see the equipment level and all the various different varying stat gains. And I've written an example of Absolab's total gain from 16 to 22 is 91-92, so 91 stat and 92 attack, whereas the Arcane Umbra gains 105 and 106. And that gain is compounded on the base stats of the item, and then the flame tiers as well. Like, all of it comes together to just make a sort of a larger gap, right? In regard to the cost of the items, we can use a Star Force calculator to sort of show like a comparison. These figures are based on the upcoming Star Force Savior changes, so no booming or failing until, well, no booming or degrading star until 15 star, but the base cost of tapping in the 12 to 14 range is increased. Our first example is Arcane Umbra, and this is a level 200 item. We have no option but to Starforce them directly because there's no lower level item to fodder into it, and I'll get into what that means in a second. Due to the more expensive cost at getting a replacement and the rarity of a box, I'm showing you the non-safeguarded version and the safeguarded version. If I was tapping Arcane Umbra now, I would safeguard personally, but you know, lots of people think differently. The thing to keep in mind is you need to make 4 Arcane Umbra armors. So based on this average of safeguarding, the bottom version, that's from 0 to 22, your average cost is 42 billion meso per piece. So in a vacuum, that's 200 bill for 4 items, which is astronomical, bro. That's not that's not counting flaming, that's not counting cubing, that's just pure Starforce cost alone. And it doesn't even count the boom cost. If you're going to buy the droplets, you're spending like, let's say it's 5.4 bill per replacement. On your boom stats there, your average boom is, we'll say free. That's 15 bill extra per item. So that's 260 bill for 4 items, dude. It's ridiculous. But because of that sheer massive cost, there is an obvious stat difference that comes with that as well. After that, we have our Absolab comparison. You might think, hang on, Absolab is a level 160 item, but you're showing item level 140. Well, that's because with Absolab, we can do a foddering method. So the way Starforce works is if you have a lower level item within 10 levels, you can transfer the stars up to the next tier, and you lose 1 star. So as an example, what I did is I used the Lionheart Battle Bracers and Pencilier Gloves. These are the Empress drop gear and the just standard Pencilier that drops in the majority of the areas in the game. And I Starforced those to 22, which, as you can see, cost about 10 bill. I then transferred them up to the Antique Root set. The example we have on the screen is the glove. You can buy these in the Chaos Root Abyss shop and the Helisium shop for Magnus. But you transfer up, and then you tap again in the middle, or you don't have to tap again, it doesn't matter what you do, but you'll then end up, you go 22, 21, 20, and then you can just tap twice on the Absolab. This way, you don't need to necessarily have as many fodders of an Absolab glove, because all of the booming you're going to do, theoretically, is going to be majority on the lower foddered items, which are much easier to acquire in comparison. In terms of comparing the cost, you can see, averagely, to make that 22 Pencilier item, as an example, it's 10 bill. Now, if you remember, the Arcane Umbra was like 46 bill with safeguarding, and 30 bill, or 35 bill with no safeguarding. So this is with no safeguarding. It's like a third of the cost. It's a fourth of the cost if you safeguard. And imagine that over the course of 4 items. For the cost of 4 absos to 22, in theory, if you don't boom at 20, that's the same cost as 1 Arcane Umbra piece, which is crazy. In terms of comparing the 2 sets together, there's a number of different factors you need to consider gear-wise for it to be a fair take. As AU is a higher item level than abso pieces, its Starforce scaling is adjusted to be higher. But as you know, that also means it costs more. AU also has higher base stats for the Starforce to gain from, because it is a higher item level. So the base numbers look much higher when comparing 2 22 items. As you can see on the screen, again, there's that stat gain on the right side. But I have a 22 cape here, and a 22 cape of Absolab as well. And on face value, it looks like there's 100 extra strength on the cape. There's more attack, there's more everything, really. And that's because it has scaled more, as it's a higher item level. But what about more comparable stars? For example, we have a 19-star Arcane Umbra piece and a 22-star Absolab piece. Now, this is a common comparison that a lot of people use when comparing Arcane to Absolab. The average line I see is that, 19-star is equivalent, but stat-wise you can see that doesn't really look true on these 2 equipments, but potentials and set bonuses also play a part in this. Even with the stat disparity, for someone with more time and meso and farms out, you need more gear to progress faster, you're going to have a much easier time getting those Pencilier and Antique Root items to fodder for the Absolab, as opposed to the Arcane Umbra. because majority of the time you're not going to be getting Umbra weekly unless you're spending all of your meso to get the replacements and fodders. If you're just a weekly player and you don't really need the fast improvement, you can gradually wait for like the drip feeding of Arcane Umbra pieces and you'll be fine. But for someone like me that is constantly pushing content and grinding and getting further, I need that faster cadence of progression. So Absolab was just an easier choice for me. Because the Star Force then scales things like Rings of Restraint, and the higher like base attack in comparison to like a 17, 18, or 19 star Arcane Umbra just helps you grind and boss that much faster. Our next segment is going to be flaming. Ooh. So to understand this, we kind of have to sort of go over a brief explanation of what flames are. Firstly, there are multiple types of flames you can use, red being powerful, the rainbow one is an eternal flame, and the black version is just a black flame. Based on the item you use this flame on, you'll get various results, based mainly on the item's level, whether it's a boss dropped, so it's a flame advantage item, and that then dictates what lines you can get and things like that. As an example, this is a Umbra item. This is a boss flame item, because Arcane Umbra comes from like a boss system, like the Lucid drops, for example, with the cape. You can see that this has a flat flame of 145 strength, and some other stats. But you might be thinking, hang on, a tier 7 on a level 200 item is 77, not 145. Well, that's because this is what we call a combo flame. Remember that flame advantage items can always roll 4 lines, so this is a combination of multiple lines together to make the 145. So how do we figure this out? Combo flames are the same amount of both stats, so we check the 30, the 36, and the 24 from the other stats, and apart from that, we add them together, and then we find a strength value in the tier, like the flame tier list, that equates to 145. Then we figure out the difference. You know, it's just simple maths. Eventually you'll figure out it's a tier 5 strength for 55 strength. It's a tier 5 strength dex combo for 30 of both. It's a tier 6 strength int for 36 of both. And a tier 4 strength luck for 24 of both. And that then makes our 145 flame. So what does that mean for our comparison with Absolab? So, the comparison here you can see is that even though both have a strength roll of tier 5, the Absolab gear has a lower base stat value because of the item's level. And this is the same concept as the Star Forcing system, where everything with gear revolves around the item's level, and that sort of dictates your cap. You can see at the top we have a sort of flame score. What is a flame score? This is essentially the amount of main stat you get from an item. So for example, the Absolab piece on the right side, the flame score is about 120 if you assume that all stat is worth 1% equals 10 stat for that character. But again, that can vary based on your own personal character, but we'll get into that in a second. These are sort of average rolls. But what does a done item look like? What's the theoretical cap for flame for these two pieces of gear, and how good can they get? Keep in mind with this part, you will never get a flame like this. Don't even try. For a cap theoretical comparison, we're going to go for 4 rolls of tier 7 flames, which is like a tier 7 is 1%, so you need 1% times 4, and then you need it on the correct line as well. Like, give it up. You're never going to get this. Don't even think about it. But for this example, we'll kind of go for it, and just for the fun, why not? The example we have for Absolab is a quad tier 7 flame with 2 combo flames and an all-stat flame, which results in a flame score of 207. Whereas the Arcane Umbra version comes in at 273. You can see a massive difference here, but again, keep in mind, you're never going to see a flame like this ever in your life. This is absolutely insane. Like, just don't even try for this. But this also means, and it sort of dictates, that settling for a slightly worse flame, but closer to this theoretical cap, is easier on an Arcane Umbra item, because the Arcane version, obviously the base flames, are a higher stat than that of the Absolab version. So even if you settle it like all T6 or all T5, it's still going to be better on the Arcane Umbra than it is on the Absolab because of the way that the base flame scaling works. So yeah, again, one of the main points of Maple's progression in general is that an item level dictates everything. So Eternal Gear, which is 250, is obviously better than Arcane Umbra. But Eternal only comes from like Callus and Calling right now, so it's kind of hard for the majority of people to get. Segment 4, this is our sort of miscellaneous part. This is just little extra bits that I threw in because I thought they were kind of relevant. The potential-wise in the top left, both items are the same potential tier. In GMS, they're part of this 1310 potential tier. In KMS, it functions differently. We have a sort of extra one. I don't really know why. Now, because you're going to use a Arcane Umbra weapon, just because it has so much higher base attack, the majority of people are going to have 4 set abso. So you lose the 5th set effect until you liberate, because the liberation weapon is a lucky item and it gives you 1 extra set bonus. So that will then apply to your Absolab. Arcane Umbra, because you use an Arcane Umbra weapon, you have the 5 set the majority of the time, even without liberation. So due to this, until you liberate, the AU set is better. Why? Because the 5th option gives an absolutely astronomical amount of attack on top and some boss damage. So you're getting 40 extra attack from the 5th set alone with 10% boss on top, which if you compare that to the Abso set, you can see that you are essentially missing that. So the difference is 20 stats, 70 attack and 10% boss, and this is mainly due to that extra slot from the weapon. Again, this is remedied with Liberation, or you can use an Absolab hat, but I don't necessarily recommend that. I don't think it's a good idea. Just use a Kra Fafnir hat. It's just much easier to get. You can fodder in a Kra hat to an Abso hat, but I don't necessarily recommend it. For the gain that you get when you liberate, you'll have to remake another Kra hat, which is just not worth the money or the time investment, in my opinion. When considering the difference between the two, again, we've sort of gone over this, but the common denominator is that 22 Abso is 19 Arcane Umbra, and that is sort of varied based on different sets and all that stuff and flames, but in general, it's a sort of fair comparison. For me, I went from 17 Arcane Umbra to 22 Absolab, just because of how fast I was able to get the Absolab. For a lot of people, you'll kind of hit this 17 AU area, and then you'll be stuck there for months. But potentially like a year if you're a casual player, just because it is so much harder to push past that 17 barrier, which is why I heavily recommend Abso to a lot of people. And a lot of people kind of laugh at it. They're like, haha, it's kind of weaker. But when you think about how much easier it is to progress thanks to that, it's a brain-dead decision to make. Because armor slots also apply to your bossing and grinding power, whereas things like accessories is one or the other, right? So you get general growth on your character for both areas that you want to game at the same time, and you don't have to worry about waiting for Arcane Umbra fodders every week. Yeah, that's kind of my take. And here's the conclusion, a bit of a long video. At the end of the day, it all comes down to, like, your account. Hello, Kit Kat. My cat is meowing at me, hang on. I was fodder-gated massively by Arcane Umbra, and needed some extra power to push through into grandest grinding without breaking the bank. And as I grind a lot, like the majority of my meso comes from grinding. Especially at the time when I was using Abso, I didn't have any boss mules. I made like 6 bill per week from boss mules, which is absolutely nothing. Say I boomed in AU, of that 6 bill, 5.4 bill then goes on a fodder just to replace what I have, and I can't even get back to 17 star. I'd be stuck at 12, and it's a net loss overall. And that's a whole week of boss income on one item. It's crazy. At the pace, my progression would have slowed down to a halt if I did that. But on the other side, all current content in the game can be cleared with Absolab. Even Kalos. As an example, to back that point up, the Luna Kalos party that I've been watching, there is a fellow Absolab gamer in there, Pod Crazy. But if I had to give a recommendation on what you should do with your main, the first key point is to analyze what you can spend, because it all comes down to your account at the end of the day, and how you play. I'll always be an Absolab gamer for now, because it's much cheaper and it's much faster to get set up. And it's also safer to get to 22, because I can just fodder. With Arcane Umbras, I don't have that luxury of sort of just constant gamba, because if it booms, it's not a good place to be in. But, at the end of the day, you can try and push an Arcane Umbra as soon as you get it and try and get lucky and go 22. But if it booms and you fail, one, you're literally just gambling at that point. And two, you don't really have that sort of... I don't really know how to say it. It's a lot riskier to sort of just go for an all-in, balls-to-the-wall 22 push when you don't have, like, a sizable fodder amount. That's just my opinion, really. But yeah. That's the video. This is the wrong screen. I'll hide that one. What if I zoom in? Oh, that's my head. That's the video. As you can tell, I sort of scripted the majority of this, so if my delivery does sound a little weird or whatever, it's because I'm literally reading like a Microsoft Word document on the other monitor. If you have any sort of different takes on this, or if you have any points that I've missed or something that you think should be addressed, leave it in the comments, and we can discuss it. Because, at the end of the day, Maple is a community game. It's all about helping each other grow. And if you think I've done something wrong here, feel free to point it out. Or if you disagree, again, feel free to comment. I'm always open to that. But yeah. I'll put the sources I've used for sort of stats and stuff in the bottom. And yeah. If you have anything else you want to say? No, I don't have anything else I want to say. I want to end it here. It's so hard ending a video, man. Subscribe. See you later. Goodbye. No, you hang up.